Night shift at a haunted Alaska gas station, 7 sinister rules revealed that will terrify you. Sarah pulled up to the gas station, the lonely outpost standing stark against the bleak Alaskan landscape. It looked more like a mausoleum than a pit stop along the dark highway. The flickering neon sign overhead buzzed inconsistently, casting eerie shadows that danced across the cracked pavement. Her heart raced, a mix of anxiety and desperation gripping her. This job, this night shift, was supposed to help her make ends meet, but the dread creeping up her spine told her there was something sinister lurking beneath the surface. As soon as she stepped inside, the world outside faded into a haunting silence. The dim lights of the gas station flickered, casting ghastly shapes across the shelves of snacks and drinks. The hum of the fridge was unnervingly loud. Then, there was her boss, an older man with deep-set eyes and a smile so disarming it felt wrong. "Remember the 7 rules," he warned cryptically, leaning in closer. "They're what keep you safe if you heed their warnings." Before she could question him, he disappeared through the door, leaving her alone with the shadows. Each minute crawled by as Sarah fought back growing unease. Outside, the wind howled like 1,000 restless spirits, rattling the windows and sending a chill through her bones. Whispers rustled across the walls, almost palpable in the dense stillness. She felt eyes watching her, unseen forces lurking just outside the flickering light. The clock struck 12, and the stillness shattered as a blizzard whipped around the station, transforming the outside world into a swirling vortex of white. She tried to rationalize it was just the wind. Just the weather. But when a string of battered cars pulled in, the tension thickened. The drifters emerged, their faces etched with fatigue and fear as they exchanged furtive glances. Sarah handed over gas and receipts with trembling hands, her pulse quickening as she overheard snippets of their conversations. "We can't go back out there," one of them whispered, eyes darting to the window. "It's not safe." Panic flooded her senses when the lights flickered violently, power cutting off for a brief moment, plunging her into suffocating darkness. Her breath came out in shaky gasps as her mind raced back to her boss's rules. "Stay calm, stay alert." But the rules offered no comfort now. Before she could gather her thoughts, tension erupted from the group's corner. They were whispering louder now, eyes wide, horror alive in their expressions. Something in the air changed, menacing, heavy, like the calm before a storm. That was when Sarah noticed the shadows moving just beyond the glass, flickering in and out of the cold blue light. A creeping sensation gripped her. She squeezed the register counter, fight or flight pulsating through her body. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The blizzard raged on, isolating them in this hellish chamber. Sarah could feel her sanity fraying, and all at once, a bone-chilling realization struck her: was she really safe here? The first of the sinister rules echoed in her mind, a twisted safety precaution that now turned against her. The whispers crescendoed, wild eyes turned toward her, and as the clock ticked down mercilessly, shadows began crawling toward the light. With heart pounding in her chest, Sarah's only thought became survival. In this game of shadows, who could she trust? Outside, the cacophony of the storm was nothing compared to the rising terror within. Would she uncover the last rule before it was too late, or would the darkness claim her as its own? The whispers multiplied, merging into a haunting symphony that made Sarah's skin crawl. She strained to decipher them, but they were unintelligible, a melange of fear and urgency that gnawed at her sanity. The drifters' eyes widened, darting toward the windows, their faces drained of color. "What is happening?" one of them asked, breaking the tense silence. "Keep your voices down," another hissed, pressing a finger to their lips. But the more they tried to be quiet, the louder the whispers became, swirling around them like a malevolent wind. With trembling hands, Sarah fumbled for her phone. The screen lit up, casting a feeble glow against the encroaching darkness. She shot a glance at the door, half expecting it to burst open and let in whatever horrors the storm carried. The thought sent ice shooting through her veins. "Why aren't you calling for help?" One of the drifters looked at her, panic igniting in their voice. I don't have service," Sarah stuttered, uncertainty clawing at her throat. Just then, the lights flickered again, an erratic dance that felt deliberate. They dimmed and pulsed, each heartbeat of the light echoed in her ears. Seconds felt like hours, and she fought against the suffocating fear. Was this part of the 7 rules? To remain calm while the world around her crumbled, the shadows outside grew more pronounced, dark figures lurking just beyond her reach. Each flicker illuminated glimpses of twisted faces, mouths stretched into ghoulish grins. Chilled air crept inside, snaking through the gaps of the station's old insulation. It brought with it the scent of decay. "Stay in a group," Sarah recalled, her boss's warning running through her mind again. It was rule number 2. But how can anyone feel safe when the shadows were so alive? She motioned for the drifters to huddle closer together. That was when the whispers caught fire with an urgent intensity. "They're coming for you, they're coming for all of you." "Who? Who is?" Sarah shouted, but her words were swallowed by the wind's wail outside. The drifters exchanged terrified glances, hope wilting under the weight of despair. "No one is safe here," one murmured, gripping their companion's arm. "We have to go now." Sarah's heart raced. Go. Back into that raging blizzard? Yet the flickering shadows and maddened whispers seemed to beckon them closer. They were trapped between the terror outside and the growing chaos within. The tension in the air turned electric as the shadows pressed against the glass, their shapes shifting like restless spirits. Bam! A powerful thud resonated against the door, rattling the glass. The drifters screamed, and Sarah felt her heart drop. She rushed to the door and looked through the glass. The blizzard whipped into frenzy, but beyond it something else stirred. Figures cloaked in darkness shuffled just within the storm, their faces twisted and contorted. "Help!" someone cried, voice breaking. The plea pierced her like glass. In that horrifying moment, she understood, they weren't trying to escape the storm. They were trying to escape what lurked within it. She swallowed hard, the taste of panic bitter on her tongue. The last rule flickered briefly in her mind. But before she could grasp its meaning, the door rattled violently again. Then bang! It swung open with a powerful force, the wind crashing in like a tidal wave. The cold swept through the gas station, sending papers flying. Shadows poured in, swirling, merging, enveloping the terrified group. "Run!" Sarah screamed. But who would survive the night? As the darkness merged with the blizzard's fury, Sarah braced herself for the untold horrors ahead. What awaited them in the depths of that storm? Would any of them escape this nightmare alive? The shadows surged forward, a writhing mass that swallowed the light. Panic erupted among the drifters, shoving and trampling each other as they stumbled back toward the registers. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. She felt her breath quicken as the icy fingers of the wind clawed at her skin, urging her forward, urging her to flee from the grips of the storm, and whatever else had emerged to join it. "Don't leave me. Wait!" A voice wailed in desperation, but it was drowned out by the relentless howling wind. Everyone was their own priority now, lost in the swirling chaos. The door slammed shut behind the last of the fleeing bodies, but the flickering lights continued their ghostly dance, casting grotesque shadows across the gas station. Sarah could barely make out their faces, each a mask of terror reflecting the horrors they had witnessed outside. "Stay together!" she shouted, rallying the surviving drifters, but her voice was swallowed by the oppressive weight of fear that filled the room. They huddled in a corner, eyes darting from shadow to shadow. One of them pointed toward the storage area, dimly lit by an old fluorescent bulb. "Maybe we can hide," he suggested, his voice trembling. "Or get trapped," Sarah snapped. Her instincts screamed at her. The last thing they needed was to retreat further into the unknown. But where else could they go? The shadows approached again, coiling around the edges of the room like serpents searching for prey. With no time to spare, Sarah glanced toward the narrow hallway leading to the bathrooms. "This way," she urged, and they bolted from their corner, sprinting toward her chosen refuge. "Lock the door," someone shouted as they shoved inside. Crouched low, Sarah leaned against the cold wall. Adrenaline coursed through her veins. The whispers had dulled but remained a menacing hum at the back of her mind. Another thud reverberated through the station, shaking the walls. The shadows recoiled, manipulated by a force unseen. In the darkness, Sarah's heart sank. Hadn't T rule number 6 warned them about hiding? Yet here they were, clinging to the fabric of safety as they listened to the malevolence creep closer, a creeping horror that made her skin prickle and her breath quiver. "What do we do now?" Another drifter murmured, her face pale and streaked with tears. "Stay quiet," Sarah whispered, keeping her voice calm, though she felt the cracks in her facade. "Don't give it a reason to find us." Outside, the wind howled more ferociously. The dark figures danced sporadically in the storm, their shapes more defined, eyes like pools of black water searching for souls. Suddenly, the door rattled again, reverberating through the tiny room like an ominous drum. "Let us in. Please." A voice begged from outside. Fear surged through them as they recognized a familiar tone. One of the drifters had been left behind. "Open the door. They're coming." The voice cried, full of urgency and dread. Sarah's stomach churned. Should she help them, or adhere to the grim lesson of survival? She knew better than to trust those whispers. They were manipulative, cunning, and all too eager to toy with their instincts. A frantic silence permeated the air as they all exchanged glances. "We can't leave them," someone finally said, breaking the fragile stillness. "Think. This could be a trap," Sarah countered, her heart racing. But the guilt gnawed at her. What if it really was one of them? The door quaked under the weight of pounding fists, desperation intermingling with the darkness. The shadows crept closer now, something sinister creeping inwards. And that's when Sarah saw a flicker of light at the end of the hallway, illuminating something terrible. Would she risk it all for the sake of another, or would the door remain closed, a barrier between light and the unknown terror awaiting them outside? As the darkness thickened, its whispers clawing at her resolve, she could only wonder what would she be willing to sacrifice to keep the creature at bay. What indeed lurked in the storm, and what awaited them when dawn finally broke? The pounding escalated, the sound like thunder rolling in from a distant storm. "Open the door," the voice insisted, more frantic now. The desperation hung thick in the air, wrapping around Sarah's throat like a noose. Every instinct screamed at her to help, to rescue the voice that echoed with fear. But she had learned her lessons well. "Stay back," she hissed, throwing out a hand to halt anyone who dared move toward the door. Fear clawed at her, a wild animal desperate to break free. The flickering of the overhead lights cast eerie shadows against the walls, twisting the faces of her companions into grotesque masks of terror. "What if they're telling the truth?" A young man murmured, fear radiating from every pore. "What if they need us?" Sarah shot him a look laced with warning. "It's a trap. Whatever's waiting out there is just waiting for us to crack." The voice on the other side shrieked again, rattling her already shaky resolve. "I can't hold them back. They're getting closer. Let me in." The cries melded with the howling wind outside, creating a symphony of terror that surged through the gas station like a living, breathing beast. Suddenly, it stopped. A silence fell over them, a heavy, leaden silence. The drifters exchanged confused glances, hearts racing. Through the gloom, something shifted. Shadows pulled back slightly as if a curtain had been drawn. Sarah felt the dread seep deeper into her bones. What just she started, but her words fell short, the shadows at the door dove inward. A darkness, more alive than before, fissured out to explore peculiar corners of the room, eager, hungry. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. It moved with intent, sweeping through the room like ice water coursing through veins. "Shut your eyes," she warned, trembling. She clutched her arms around herself, trying to diminish the overwhelming urge to flee. The darkness crawled closer, snaking toward them, seeking weakness. "Why isn't it trying to break in?" a drifter whispered, wide-eyed and confused. "What does it want?" another breathed. "I don't know," Sarah said quietly, feeling the weight of their despair pressing down. The fear clawed its way through her mind, vicious whispers now the soundtrack of their doom. As if responding to their panic, the room plunged into deeper shadow. The fluorescent light flickered wildly, a last desperate gasp of illumination. Then, with an almost sentient insistence, it snuffed out, plunging them all into a suffocating darkness. Panic surged again, a tidal wave. Heartbeats thumped like war drums in the stillness, each one louder than the last. A sob broke free from one of the drifters, and Sarah pressed her palms against her ears, trying to drown out the sound. "Stay together," she urged again, though urgency crept into her voice, steadily clawing at her own sanity. A whisper slithered across the room, winding through the group like smoke. "Let us," in the voice was now different, lower. Seductive. Enticing. It curled around Sarah's thoughts, dragging her closer to the door. "Don't listen," she shouted, but doubt twisted in her mind. What if it was real? What if they sacrificed themselves for nothing? The scuffling began. The shadows danced in the corners of her vision, shifting and flickering with a life of their own. Each murmur, each soft shuffle made her exhausted nerves stretch tauter. "Sarah." A different voice reached her, tentative. It was familiar, soothing. "Please no, not this." She clasped the edges of her shirt, squeezing until her knuckles turned white. She wanted to scream, to fight the growing darkness spreading through the room, filling every crevice. But then, a clattering sound echoed from the doorway, the sound of a key. Did someone find a way to undo the barrier? It came from within the shadows, a light flickered back like a beacon for trapped souls. "Wait, please." A sudden thought crushed her. If they opened that door, what truths would they unearth? What nightmarish specter would step inside, forever changing the course of their lives? Just as the light dimmed again, Sarah's mind raced. The cost of their safety weighed heavy. She slammed her eyes shut, praying there had to be some way to fight back, to survive. What dark price would they pay to remain in the light? And how far would they go to bar the shadows from creeping into their sanctuary? The whispers swelled, and Sarah felt the claws of despair reaching for her. Would they embrace the darkness or confront the unknown horror that lingered just beyond the door? The darkness swirled, thick and palpable. Sarah squeezed her eyes tighter, heart hammering against her ribs. The air felt charged, crackling with unseen energy. She could almost hear the hiss of malevolent laughter lurking just beyond her consciousness. Every breath was a shudder, every heartbeat a countdown. The shadows began to pulse, not just surrounding them but reaching inside the walls. A faint echo of their own racing pulses seemed to resonate back at them like a warped reflection. She could feel the panic rising, swirling with the dread that clawed at her throat. "Is it in the room with us?" A voice trembled, cutting through the stillness. It was the young man's, fear fracturing into tremors. "I don't know." "Just stay quiet," Sarah hissed. She could feel the urgency inside her turning to rage. How could they be so weak, so easily swayed by the darkness? "Sarah, look." A hand outstretched toward the door, the glow of the key now brighter, flickering like a dying star. The light battled fiercely against the engulfing shadows, not quite an oasis, but not entirely devoid of hope either. "No. Don't move," she screamed, desperation fueling her command. "We can't." The words died in her throat as the light morphed. It was shifting. No longer a beacon, it twisted into something grotesque, a puppeteering shadow with that strange voice intertwined in its fabric. Let us in, it intoned again, but the seduction was dead now, replaced by a guttural hunger. Sarah heard a whimper behind her. She turned, and in the dimmest of light, she caught sight of someone. Was that Amy? She was trembling, staring into the dark with wide eyes. I can't take this, Sarah. I can't focus. Sarah snapped, her mind racing. A decision had to be made. They could stay tight against that door, risking everything as darkness seeped into their minds. Or listen, she whispered, urgency replaced by solemnity. We have to force it out. If it's feeding off our fear, we stop being afraid. But how? Another drifter interjected, mindlessly inching toward the light and the whispers. Together. We fight it. Sarah felt a tremor of confidence surge, igniting the spark in others. Think of something, anything that makes you feel strong. A moment stretched on, each face lighting with memories, and she grabbed Amy's hands. What do you want most? A family. I want to be free. Amy's voice steadied, grounding her in the storm of chaos. Then that's what we will become. Stand with me. Others echoed their desires: freedom, love, safety, as though casting a spell against the weight of despair. The light flickered, giving way to a glimmer of hope, but the shadows recoiled and roared in protest, a chilling symphony of rage clashing with the resolve that built among them. The deafening sounds of ethereal wails cocooned them, the temperature dropped, squeezing their chests. Sarah shivered but held strong. Focus. She bellowed, voice slicing through the dark like a knife. Push it back. With all their might, they summoned warmth and fought against the icy claws that dragged them toward the abyss. The shadows writhed, lashing out. She felt the first visceral wave of resistance try to break her, but they all pushed like an ocean tide, determination surging forth. Something cracked, shattering the air like glass. The shadows howled, twisting violently, fear warping into fermenting fury. The lights flickered with chaos around them, and Sarah's heart raced faster. But what if they lost? What if the dark pushed back and enslaved them? As if answering her unspoken fear, the whispers came again, louder and more frantic. You can't fight what you don't understand. And right then, the blinding light erupted, exploding from the keyhole and splintering the darkness in every direction. Why are you afraid? A voice rang out, chilling her blood. It was gentle, mocking, wrapping around each person like silk. What do you think you know? As the darkness surged toward them, their outcry met the void, echoing back her deepest fears and desires. Holding her breath, Sarah wondered, had they truly begun to fight, or had they only awoken the true horror that was lurking just beyond the door? Are you ready to face the truth? The mocking voice sang, and just then, the door shook violently, rattling on its hinges, as if something powerful was trying to break through. Sarah! Someone screamed, and she felt the pressure rising, the tension snapping like a wire ready to coil into chaos. What would succumb first, their hopes or the darkness? The sound of the door rattling echoed like gunfire, jarring Sarah out of her thoughts. Every instinct screamed for her to flee, but fear anchored her to the spot. The shadows pressed closer, their icy whispers creeping up her spine, slick as night. Don't look away. She shouted, heart pounding. If you see it, it'll know you're afraid. The others clutched each other, bodies trembling, eyes darting in panic. Amy's grip on Sarah tightened, her breath quickening. What if it gets in? She gasped. Sarah squeezed Amy's hands tighter, drawing comfort from the warmth of human connection. We won't let it. Together, remember? Her voice had become a lifeline, a fragile thread binding them against impending doom. The mocking voice grew louder, reverberating off the cold cement walls. What is it you truly desire, mortals? Freedom? Safety? Love? You think you can bargain with me? The shadows surged, their presence morphing, clawing for form and substance. Faces appeared within their depths, lost, twisted. Sarah recoiled as she recognized glimpses of her own fears solidifying in the darkness: failure, abandonment, the gnawing despair of solitude. Stay focused. Do not give it your mind, she implored. Think of something that brings you joy. But it was difficult. The horror of the situation washed over each person, gnawing at their resolve. She glimpsed the others' faces turning pale, fear etching deep lines of despair. Around her, shadows manifested more distinctly, a swirling mist that whispered bile in their ears. Remember your memories, Sarah shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. Hold on to them. Visualize the light of every moment that made you smile. A young woman named Lisa broke first, her body trembling with dread. It's too strong. I can't do this. No. Sarah shouted back, desperation flooding her heart. You're stronger than it knows. We were made for each other. Hold on to that. Lisa's gaze flickered from the darkness to Sarah. Hesitation glimmered in her eyes before she nodded, fists tightening. One by one, the group began to sway together, memories igniting their spirits. I remember my dad's laugh, Lisa whispered, voice shaking. The shadows seemed to recoil at the sound of her fragile joy. I remember my sister's arms around me. A man shouted, stepping forward. I remember the smell of fresh bread. Another voice piped up, and the darkness lurched, as if repulsed. Sarah felt heat radiating from their collective memories, battling the oppressive chill that threatened to engulf them. Keep going. She urged, feeling strength pulsing through them like a rebellion. But just as their hopes began to weave a tapestry of light against the murky black, a deep roar erupted from within the shadows. You cannot win. You are nothing without your fears. The shadows lunged, splintering into flames of fury, air crackling with danger. Panic gripped Sarah's chest once more. Their light flickered, challenged by the looming darkness. Keep pushing. She yelled, terror tightening her throat. This is our fight. Suddenly, the door ceased its violent rattling and opened a crack. A blinding slice of light pierced the gloom, illuminating fragments of the apparitions that faltered, but it also revealed what lay beyond, shadows deeper than any they had encountered. They flickered and twisted, grotesque in their forms, writhing as if alive. Let us show you the truth, the voice cooed, curling around them. You think yourself brave? Come. Come and see your destinies. As the gap widened, the shimmering light shifted and beckoned. It pulsated like a heartbeat, promising truth, but also revealing what remained hidden. You think your desires remain untainted? What if they are more twisted than you believe? Before Sarah could scream a warning, the tendrils of shadow lashed toward the light, twisting and curling, threatening to pull them in. Sarah, what do we do? Amy cried, her eyes wide with disbelief, terror threatening to swallow her whole. Sarah closed her eyes, summoning everything they had fought to protect. She couldn't afford to lose them now, not like this. Fight. Back. She cried, uncertainty clawing at her confidence. We are stronger together. We stand against this. But as the shadows pressed in, their whispers grew louder, suffocating, drowning out hope. All Sarah could do was wonder, was this the battle she was meant to lose? And what truth awaited them beyond that door? Will you follow the light? The voice purred, echoing like a dark omen. The answer was close, lurking just out of reach, taunting them to take that final leap into the unknown. But at what cost? Would truth free them or finally shatter all that remained? The shadows surged forward, their tendrils snapping like hungry vipers. Sarah felt the air grow thick, suffocating her resolve. Time seemed to stretch, each moment dragging like an echo, as she fought to keep her eyes fixed on the light beyond the door. Together. She shouted, her voice trembling but fierce. Hold on to each other. The group huddled closer, hearts racing in unison. Every sound felt amplified, the frantic pounding of their hearts, the soft rustle of clothing, the whispers spiraling and urging them to give in. It was a cacophony of fear that threatened to pull them apart. "Hold the light!" Lisa shouted, her voice rising above the sinister whispers that clawed at them. The shadows writhed, dark fingers curling around the group, grasping for weakness. Sarah felt the chill seep into her bones, gnawing at her sanity. What if the truth is worse than this? A creeping thought slithered into her mind. Images of dread filled her failed relationships, shattered dreams, the moments of cowardice that had defined her. "No. Fight it!" Sarah cried, shaking her head violently. She wouldn't let the shadows corrupt her thoughts. Think of what you love. The spirit of rebellion ignited in their hearts, rekindling the light. One by one, they whispered their joys into the chaos: an innocent laughter, a warm embrace, a future yet to come. Each confession pierced through the thick darkness, illuminating the space around them, causing the shadows to recoil. Then, without warning, the shadows exploded outward, unleashing a deafening roar that rattled the very walls. A shadowy figure emerged, towering above them, featureless, but radiating an aura of despair. Its presence wrapped around them like a blanket of ice, extinguishing their fleeting lights. "You think your joys can defeat me?" The voice boomed, low and mocking, sending tremors through Sarah's entire body. "You have no idea the secrets hidden within yourselves. Don't listen." Amy yelled, her voice cracking, eyes wide with terror. Desperation surged through Sarah. Her memories spiraled, flashes of her life slipping in and out of focus, challenging the monster's taunts. "I want to let you take us." The air sparkled, filled with weak flickers of hope. They recoiled from the shadowy mass, but the momentum was slipping as the darkness expanded, filling every corner of the room, hungry for every speck of light. Choose. It was a choice that weighed heavily on Sarah. Knowledge or ignorance? Know your fears, or live in blissful denial. "Knowledge," she whispered, her voice cracking but resolute. "Knowledge will help us fight." A flicker of courage sparked to life. The others joined in, nodding, their voices echoing against the cold walls. "We choose knowledge." They chorused, finding bonds they never knew existed. "Time is running out." The shadows hissed, and with a sudden movement, they lunged forward, aiming to trap them in relentless darkness. "Then let us find the truth together," Sarah shouted, reaching for Amy's hand, feeling the warmth of her grip steadying her resolve. They had to confront the shadows that whispered their fears, they had to see what lay behind them. The door widened further, light spilling in waves, illuminating the room with a fierce brightness that pushed against the shadows. Yet, shadows still lurked in the corners, seeping into their minds, dredging up secret fears they had buried long ago. All at once, Sarah felt cold hands gripping her heart, thought of her nightmares rising like specters. What if this is the end? Her mind echoed, the walls closing in as the darkness threatened to consume them, but the moment of doubt quickly passed. Sarah remembered their voices, their unity carving through the malevolent whispers. "We're not afraid," she screamed, and with that, the pulsating light surged, spilling out like a flood, driving the darkness back. Yet, even as the shadows shrieked, they morphed into a tangible shape, a memory. A figment. And there, their faces were twisted into expressions of pain and regret. "Do you think you can outshine your true selves?" It sneered, the reality folding around them like a shroud. "Step through the door, find out." The darkness beckoned seductively, its grip tightening. But what lay beyond? Sarah's breath caught. What if the truth was too much to bear? But the swirling shadows had become a storm, and she stood at its eye, heart racing faster than ever before. "Together!" she shouted, and for a fleeting moment, they hesitated, standing at the precipice. Then, with a collective inhale, they prepared to step into the light, knowing they had to confront what lay beyond, whatever fear awaited. The door creaked open wider, spilling it open into the abyss. Would they find liberation, or were they wandering into a nightmare deeper than any of them could fathom? As the door creaked and the light poured in, Sarah felt a jolt of hope mixed with terror. The warmth of the light on her skin was intoxicating, but an icy dread clung to her as the shadows writhed behind them, waiting to pounce. "Move!" she cried, gripping Amy's hand tighter. The others followed suit, stepping forward together into the radiant unknown, hearts pounding in a synchronized rhythm of defiance against the encroaching darkness. The moment they crossed the threshold, everything shifted. The vibrant light morphed, swirling around them. They weren't in a hallway anymore, they found themselves standing in a gas station at the edge of a vast, dark expanse of wilderness. Muffled whispers rushed through the air, seeping into their minds like poison. Flickering neon signs cast eerie shadows, and the air smelled of gasoline mixed with the overripe scent of fear. "Where are we?" Amy's voice trembled, her eyes darting around the dimly lit store. "It feels wrong," Lisa whispered. "Like we're not supposed to be here." Behind the counter, a disheveled figure emerged, an old man with hollow cheeks and sunken eyes that sparkled with something sinister. "Welcome to the Nightshift," he said, his voice slurring, carrying a weight that pulled at their very souls. "You're lost, aren't you?" The door behind them slammed shut with a deafening bang, sealing them in. Panic surged through them as they realized they were trapped. The old man's grin widened, revealing teeth crooked and yellowed. "7 rules to survive the night," he crooned, tilting his head. "Break 1, and darkness will find you." He gestured toward the shadowy corners of the station. They barely held back shivers as whispers grew closer. "What do you want?" Sarah demanded, fear lacing her words. "Only to share the truth," he replied, chuckling softly. "Are you ready?" He shuffled towards them, and with a swift motion, he pulled out a faded index card and began to read, each word dripping with malice. "Rule 1, never ask for help. Those who do become the shadows." As if summoned, a rush of cold air swept through the station. Visions floated before them, people screaming for help, their bodies consumed by darkness, twisted in agony. Rule 2, don't touch the merchandise. Each item has a past, a story, a curse. He pointed to the shelves where jars glimmered ominously. From inside, shadows writhed, clawing to escape. Sarah felt the urge to flee, but her feet felt glued to the linoleum floor. Rule 3, if the lights flicker, don't blink. The lights overhead flickered ominously, plunging them into intermittent darkness. Breaths quickened, muscles tensed, but no one dared to blink. Rule 4, the bathroom is out of order. Don't go there. The warning echoed like a death knell, bringing forth images of grotesque figures lurking just beyond the door. Amy gasped. "What's in there?" "Screams," he replied, a sinister chuckle bubbling from his throat. "Screams of those who ignored the signs. Stop. Just let us leave." Lisa shouted, her voice breaking. The man took a step closer, eyes narrowing. 5, never trust a whisper. They lie. They lure you. As if on cue, whispers echoed from the shadows, creeping into their minds, insidious suggestions swirling with promises of safety. 6, when you hear the clock strike 12. His gaze darkened. It's already too late. Sarah's heart raced as she noted the chipped clock hanging behind him, its hands slowly edging towards midnight. And the final rule? The man leaned in, his breath rancid, eyes gleaming with a malicious delight. If you see someone you know, don't approach. They might not be who they seem. A thud behind them made every head snap around. A figure appeared through the glass door, pale and gaunt, someone familiar. Is that? Sarah's voice trailed off, her heart pounding in her chest. The man's laughter filled the station, bouncing off the walls, resonating with the growing terror. So many rules in such little time. You can't escape your fate. Prove me wrong. Choose wisely. As they stood frozen, uncertainty swirling around them, the clock ticked ominously, inching ever closer to doom. Would they dare to challenge the rules, or would fear seal their fate? Look out! Sarah shouted, eyes wide as the familiar figure pushed against the door, a face twisted in grief, hands clawing at the glass as darkness surged behind them. what awaited them was worse than any nightmare. The figure outside pulled at the glass, desperation etched into every feature. It looked like David Sarah's brother. But the hollow shadow that lingered in his eyes made her hesitate. A shiver slithered down her spine. "Let him in!" Lisa screamed. "No!" roared the old man, his voice like gravel. "Remember the rules." The whispers grew louder, echoing her brother's name. "David!" Sarah shouted, stepping closer, her heart aching. "What happened to you?" "Sarah, please. I need help." He gasped, eyes darting to the shadows creeping closer in the gas station, their whispers rising into a cacophony. The old man chuckled again, with a humor so dark it sent chills rippling through the group. "He not as he was. The darkness changed him. Don't let the whispers fool you. He may look familiar, but he's a lure." The clock on the wall ticked with an eerie precision. 10 minutes until midnight. "David, just get in. We can figure this out." Sarah felt her resolve waver as he raked his hands against the glass. She could see the sallow skin stretched tightly over his bones. "Don't trust him," Amy cried, panic flooding her voice. "What if he's one of them?" "Sarah, you have to believe me. I'm losing myself to this darkness. You have to help me." The whispers became maddening, swirling around them like a tempest of shadows. "Help him," they softly insisted, seductive and enticing. "He's your brother." "That wasn't David, not anymore." "But what if it was?" The thought gnawed at her, deeper than any terror. Gripping Amy's arm, she let fear pull her deeper into the moment. "Break the rules," the old man said, sensing their hesitation. "You can see what happens when the clock strikes." I can't, Sarah stammered, lips trembling. "David, please, are you really you?" "Yes. Please believe me." The glass shook violently as something heavy slammed against it from outside. The darkness behind him swelled, black tendrils reaching out and clawing at the sky. "Rule 1, never ask for help," the old man reminded them, voice low and slick like oil. Sarah felt her mind split into two, a heavy fog clouding her thoughts. Should she trust him? Should she reach for her brother, risking all of their lives? "Sarah!" he cried, more desperate now. "I'm right here. Don't leave me." The old man reached for her, his crooked fingers outstretched. "Are you ready to learn what darkness has in store?" With a shock, the lights flickered intensely, threatening to die. Instinctively, Sarah and Amy squeezed their eyes shut, as beads of sweat trickled down their backs. Then came the silence that in the darkness, something shifted, a growl, deep and primal, coming from just beyond the door. The shadows surged, slamming against the glass, frantic and ravenous. She could feel a presence, something lurking not far from David's only fraction of freedom. Something that wanted to tear through the veil and take them all. "Now!" Lisa shouted, yanking Sarah backward as the flicker came again, and they all blinked in unison, a mistake hanging in the air. The glass shattered, shards glinting like eyes in the darkness. David's wretched scream pierced through with a rawness that cut deeper than the broken glass. Sarah stumbled back, eyes wide in horror. A figure, once familiar, stood half visible past the gaping hole left by the door. The twisted face morphed further into the darkness, revealing sharper teeth, an impossibly stretching grin. Heavy darkness billowed in, surrounding them, drowning out the feeble glimmers of hope. The clock struck 11. And the old man's grin widened. "Rule 7, you're too late." A dark figure loomed close, eerily familiar. The whispers rose in a feverish chorus. "What will you become, when the night claims you?" In the chaos, one final thought pierced Sarah's mind. Was it too late to escape? As darkness crashed down around them, the echo of memories lost and futures shattered rang out. Who would survive this night? The air was electric with terror. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs, a drum beating to a most sinister rhythm. The dark figure, an amalgamation of shadow and despair, inched closer, its eyes glimmering with wicked intent. The echoes of the old man's laughter reverberated in her mind, a haunting reminder of the rules they had desperately tried to navigate. But there was no more time for fear. Sarah looked around, faces grim and uncertain, yet she felt something within her flicker to life, an ember of defiance. Together! She shouted, her voice slicing through the clammy silence like a knife. We have to trust each other. With sheer will, the group huddled together, hearts thumping as one. The whispers swirled around, beckoning them to give in to despair. Yet despite the pull of darkness, they refused to break apart. Think of something good. Sarah urged, eyes locked on Amy, who looked paralyzed with anxiety. I remember my dad holding me close, Amy's voice trembled. When I was scared, he made everything seem all right. Exactly. Sarah beamed, a rush of warmth coursing through her. We have to remember that feeling. Who you are, not what they want you to be. Each member of the group began recalling cherished memories, their voices rising defiantly against the weight of darkness. A softened smile danced across Lisa's face as she murmured, I remember watching the sunrise with my best friend. It was so beautiful. Another quickly added, the time I rode my bike without training wheels. With each shared memory, the darkness recoiled, shrieking in pain as though assaulted by a blinding light. The increasingly desperate shadows twisted with rage, hissing threats into the night, but now they could see their power dwindling. The fractures in the shadows turned into fissures of light, their colors shimmering bright against the oppressive gloom. The clock struck 11:30. They were halfway to the end of their prison if they could just hold on. Keep going. Sarah shouted, feeling a confidence bubble within her. Remember the sense, the laughter, the warmth of friendship. Spellbound, the others joined in, their experiences tumbling out in cascading waves. Feelings of nostalgia formed a shield around them, a radiant halo that pushed the encroaching darkness back with each heartfelt word. Laughter danced through the gas station, building into a crescendo, drowning out the wicked whispers that longed to invade their hearts. The old man's voice, now softer, oozing with disbelief, cut through the gathering light. You think you can resist me? You will join the night. He spat, rage bleeding through his words, but Sarah would not yield. You're wrong. She shouted back, a boldness igniting within her. You think our fears make us weak? We're stronger together. Light and hope bind us. The room began to illuminate, reflecting the strength in their connection. The swirling shadows writhed around them, clawing at the fragile light, but they did not sway. Instead, they surged forth. Holding hands, they leaned on each other while murmurs of encouragement lifted them higher. The figure before them crumbled. Flickers of memory merged, revealing lost souls that once thrived in the warmth of love, the power of courage, and the beauty of shared experiences. Together, they resisted the darkness, the shadows diminishing in the face of their united humanity. Help me. The dark figure howled one last time through a face that once resembled David's but was twisted and corrupted. The darkness folded upon itself, shadows recoiling in horror as their own power waned. With a final, thunderous cry, the figure dissolved into a mist, sucked back into the void from which it came, and then silence. The clock struck 12, echoing eerily in the newfound stillness. Uncertain yet free, they stood amid the gas station, no longer besieged by familiar nightmares, but feeling the warmth of hope. Lights flickered, yet they remained bright with promise. The old man was gone, leaving naught but a lingering shadow of his presence as they emerged from the dark coil of despair. Is it? Over? Lisa whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. Sarah looked around, feeling the bonds of their shared experiences intertwine and strengthen. We faced the darkness together, she replied, breathing in deeply. And I think that was the final rule, that love, remembrance, and togetherness are what keep the shadows at bay. As dawn broke, the last vestiges of darkness flickered out, captured by the first rays of light spilling over the horizon. The gas station, once a haunted fortress, transformed into a refuge, a testament to their resilience through the night. Gathering their belongings, Sarah turned to her companions, faces illuminated with newfound strength. "Let us go home," she offered, resolve echoing in her voice. Together, they opened the door, stepping outside, leaving behind what could have consumed them. The chill of Alaska wrapped around them, but now it felt invigorating, ushering in the dawn of a new day filled with endless possibilities rather than ominous shadows. As their footsteps faded into the distance, they would carry forward the power they found in unity, a light that could never be extinguished. Now, if you've enjoyed this wild journey, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that keep you up at night. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support means everything. We want to hear from you, so flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.